Hello and welcome to my shop. On this episode of the Rusted Nut Workshop, we're going to restore this bandsaw, grab a great condition MiniMax S45, not much use, had a little bit of rust on it, cleaned it up, used a technique used in boat building yards for protecting cast iron tools from rust. So using cold bluing or gun bluing, I actually cleaned up the top, applied gun bluing, and want to see how it's going to hold up in the workshop to prevent rust and corrosion while it's sitting here in the shop. So why don't you go ahead and join me for the next few minutes, and I'll show you actually how we took this saw and put it back into use. My name is Robert Tarr, and welcome to my workshop. I affectionately call this the Rusted Nut Workshop, and we like to spend some time creating out here. We like to fix old tools, bring them back into usability, learn new techniques, and overall have a good time. And also enjoy a couple of funny t-shirts. So today, this is going to be my very first YouTube video, and I have no idea what the heck I'm doing. So it's undoubtedly going to be bad, so we'll start with that expectation. And then we will move on to hopefully having a good time together and learning a couple of things. So one of the things that I like to do is actually acquire quality old tools and rehab them and bring them back into usability. So today, one of the things that I picked up recently was this older MiniMax S45. I don't know much about it other than the previous owner used it one time, and I usually like to start with bringing them into the workshop, then kind of taking a quick look, make sure that nothing's dangerous, and then power them up. So I've already done that, and the very first thing I noticed was when I powered it up, the motors, sounds good, the wheels spin true, the blade had an incredible bend in it, and before I could get it powered down, it already jumped off of the wheels. So with that, why don't we go ahead and do a quick walk around of the saw, go ahead and start to get it cleaned up, and then see what it's going to take to put it back into usability. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy the journey. Success.
Okay, here is a quick look at the saw. Everything appears to be in good order. The first thing I noticed whenever I picked up the saw was the table. It appears to have had some sort of rust proofing. I bought this saw from an older gentleman, and it had he was out there trying to clean it up to make sure that it got sold, and it has got a kind of a rough feel to it. So I think it's probably a combination of, the very first time it was put into service, probably not cleaned all that well. It also has a very identifiable smell. So I think he put a little navel jelly on there, and in efforts to get rid of the surface rust and make sure that the saw moved on down the road. First things first, let's open up the top cabinet. There's your very bent and very badly warped blade that jumped off of the top tire. Everything looks to be in pretty good shape. The tires look really, really good. Nothing's smashed, nothing's damaged. The guide system looks really good. I'm very familiar with this. I've got this saw's big brother, the MiniMax line of this same saw, so know quite a bit about the manufacturer and the manufacturing process. The lower wheels, opening the doors here for the first time, looks like everything is in order. Got a couple of extra spider webs, a little bit of sawdust, but overall everything is spinning very freely. On the back side, no dents, no damage. The heavy trunnions on these saws are amazing. Overall, everything looks like it's going to be in really good shape. So why don't we go ahead and start getting this thing cleaned up?
So first thing I'm gonna do is, this bandsaw blade is absolute garbage. So I'm gonna go ahead and clip it off of here instead of trying to fish it out. So it'll be a lot easier to get rid of it in a couple of pieces than trying to manage some of these tight corners here. So reach in with a pair of tin snips. Cut the top pieces off. Okay, lift up that blade guard, get this out of the way. We'll come down here, flip this off. And then see if we can fish the rest of this out of here. All right. And with that, I'm gonna go ahead and power up the saw and have this bottom wheel spin. Everything looks good on the tires. So let me just go ahead and fire it up for you guys and we'll take a look. Plug it in real quick. So there we are. All the wheels seem to be spinning very freely. All right, looking for vibration, any sort of, bearings out of balance. The belt looks like it has taken a bit of a set, so there's a little bit of vibration coming from the belt, so we might replace the belt. Let's go ahead and turn it off and let it power down. Overall, everything looks really good. Now let's go ahead and just get her cleaned up. So, quick vacuum out, and then we'll start the disassembly and cleaning process. Okay, now let's bring you in for a closer look. Okay, so we got everything vacuumed out. It cleaned up really well. A couple of things that I noticed was that I don't think the bandsaw blade has ever been tensioned, which probably equals the bent blade. The blade guides themselves were misadjusted. I could tell from the side of the blades that they were burning. The side of the blade, the guide head itself was loose, so I would guess that this either probably wasn't set up correctly ever, or it just sat and got moved around a bunch. So with that, why don't I go ahead and get the fence off, and we'll start taking a look at this tabletop and see what we can do to get it cleaned up. So I'll show you a couple of my favorite methods to get off old packing grease, some rust, things like that. So why don't we go ahead and start tearing this thing down and see what we can find. So, okay, so we're probably going to end up passing by the paint thinner pretty quickly. So mineral spirits usually doesn't touch an awful lot and leaves a long time to kind of flash off. My favorite is acetone, and then the last one is full naphtha. You have to be careful around plastic products and some of the rubber that may be part of the belts, etc. So I prefer to use acetone for the majority of what I clean up. So why don't we go ahead and put on some gloves and go ahead and get started. All right, I've got some gloves on, and here's a close-up look at some of the telltale signs of what we were working with here before. The rust is not bad on the tabletop at all. No pitting that I can see. I tried a little mineral spirits on this tabletop and it didn't move it at all. So let's go ahead and see what we can do here one-handed with some acetone. Let's see if it'll take some of the swirl marks and such off of the tabletop here. And it does not look like it's doing anything. So that actually sort of leads me to believe that it was navel jelly that he used, which kind of is a binder and kind of converts the rust directly on the tabletop. So it's time to do something a little bit more aggressive. We'll do a little scraping and then we'll probably go right to sanding. So, okay, these are my next two favorite tools for cleaning up old cast iron. So this will get off rust, this will get off old gunk. Just a regular straight razor this safety razor, box cutter kind of blade. I usually buy them in bulk, and they last me 10 years per package or so. You can see some of the rust on this brand new one that's been sitting out on the counter. And you don't want a super aggressive angle, but you can be fairly aggressive with it. And you'll start to see some of maybe the rusty spots kind of scraping up. See some of this silver kind of components here from the navel jelly. And I still think we're going to end up having to be a little bit more aggressive. So I also like a pair of vice grips with a blade on it. Let you get a lot more control, a lot more focus, energy. You can use it both ways. Next up is my probably most used method for getting after cast iron that isn't completely abused. So if it's really bad, you go ahead and scrape it. If it's in condition like this, then what I typically do is pull out an older random orbit sander, a maroon Scotch-Brite pad, and you'll see these videos all over the internet, so this isn't anything new, but this is probably my favorite way to go. A lot of guys will use mineral spirits, a little cheaper. I like WD-40 just because I think I like the smell more. If you aren't careful, this will sling WD-40 and black slurry all over the place, but let's go ahead and see what it looks like when we give it a quick little buff here. Quick spritz of WD-40. And let's see what we have here. Okay, let's grab a little mineral spirits and paper towel and see where we're at. So I did put a little tape down over the bearings, etc., just to make sure that we weren't dripping a whole lot of material down inside of the saw. But you can see that is cleaning that up really quickly. It gets pretty nasty in a heartbeat here, but we're cutting through that layer of gray crud exceptionally well. So we're probably going to have to do a little bit more than just the Scotch-Brite pad to bring this to full glory. But this, at first blush, is cutting through really nice. I might probably step up over here in these edges and polish it a little bit more. Probably going to use some 400 grit sandpaper or something like that, and kind of move on from there. Okay, we've got everything buffed pretty well with the Scotch-Brite pad, so let's see what the finished products looks like and see how much further, if at all, that we need to go to get this thing back up to a fully polished state. So it's never going to be perfect. It's had some rust spots and stains on it, but it's a heck of a lot better than where we started, even though where we started wasn't all that bad. So I think we're cleaning up really nice here. Still need to do that miter slot. Let me go ahead and grab one more paper towel here. All right, gang, this is what it looks like after a maroon Scotch-Brite pad. I had to step it up here. I grabbed my random orbit sander that I had a hard pad on, so I knew it was flat. And I put a little 220 grit sandpaper on there and just quickly buffed it up. And that is with a little bit of acetone rubbed on the top. It is dead smooth. You can see where some of the etching from the previous rust was, but you can't feel any of it. You can't hear any of it. You can see the factory grind here. All right, guys. I went ahead and pulled the table off the bandsaw. Got it here upside down on the bench. This is what would be the fence side of it with the 4 screws that go in there. There are 2 pins on the bandsaw that this actually rides inside of these grooves, and it still looks like the original packing grease there. A little bit of rust, not bad at all, but we'll get that cleaned up and put back on the saw. All
right, guys, here is the bandsaw without the table on it that I just showed you. And you'll notice that there's a pin on both sides that the table rides in to pivot. And then this is the firm fixed place to lock the table in place. The upper guides are the 3 different bearings. You'll find them on all of the MiniMax saws as well as some of the other saws. And on the bottom, you'll actually see the graphite impregnated guides here. So doesn't look like they've been adjusted ever. So why don't we go ahead and take these guys off, get them soaking in some solvent and get them cleaned up. Okay, so we're just gonna take a 10mm socket and pull off the bottom guides, which are completely loose. Throw that into the container, put this back in here for the time being. Okay, so we have the guides off the saw, and we're just gonna go ahead and soak them in a little bit of mineral spirits and get them cleaned up, make sure everything's freed up. Everything seems to be pretty good. There's a little bit of sticking because of the packing grease again, so just kind of pouring a little bit of mineral spirits, hit them with a nice soft brush. Make sure that everything is kind of up to par here, and we'll get these things freed up. So as you can tell, this side moves really well. This side is completely stuck, so we'll get that deeper into the mineral spirits. The bearing still has a little packing grease on there, but that's going to clean up just fine. And yeah, I think we're in good shape. So this will clean up really well. I'll potentially bring it over to the wire wheel and knock the rust spots off. That shouldn't take just a second. Everything else appears to be in pretty good shape. I think we're done. Now time to do a little bit of polishing on these faces. You can see that this was probably tightened directly onto the bandsaw blade and seized this bearing from spinning, and it actually put a little bit of an etch in there. So we'll just polish up that face really quickly and we should be done. Putting this back together, wanted to show you a cool tool that I think everybody should have. I think these are, I don't know, under 15 bucks from Lee Valley. It's a precision oiler. You put whatever oil you want to in the top, and then you actually just hit the button at the very top, and it will let out 1 drop of oil. So as you can see, inside of the bearings, you can actually see the internal threads here. So I'm just going to go ahead and put a couple of drops of oil directly down inside of this adjustable bearing. I'll probably roll it up here and put in 1 more drop. You can hopefully see that coming out. If you over lubricate these kinds of bearings, and in a woodworking shop, you're going to end up with it collecting a whole lot of dust. But if you're able to just put a little bit of lubricant exactly where you need it, it makes things a whole lot easier as you move forward for both cleanup as well as making sure that you don't have any contaminants in your work, etc. So for the first adjustment, what we're wanting to do is have these guides here and here just behind the tooth's gullet. So, oops. So we're gonna go ahead and loosen this up, slide it forward just a touch, and then go ahead and tighten it back up. Okay, now that we have that done, we can take the guides themselves and push them just ever so slightly away from the blade. Some people use a dollar bill or a piece of paper to do this. Given that we've got a bent bandsaw blade, I don't know that I'm gonna go super tight, so we'll see how this works here in just a moment.
I'll see if we can do this with my big hands, see if we can keep them out of the way here. So same thing here. We're gonna make sure that the post is tight. We're going to do a couple of different things. So we're gonna loosen this entire assembly, try to bring these guides up to just behind the gullet, tighten them up, and then we're gonna run them in to where they just kiss. And then we'll go ahead and lock these down. Okay. And then we'll do the same thing with our thrust bearing back here. Just come up and touch it and then pull it back just ever so slightly. And with any luck, we should be able to spin this by hand. You can see that this bearing turns whenever the bent part of the blade touches that, which is okay for what we're doing here. See that there's a slight bend right here, so that's okay. So why don't we go ahead and get the doors closed up. I'll get the saw powered on and then we'll take it for a quick run without the table. So a little polish on here to kind of get the streak marks from cleaning it up. But we've got the doors closed, the guides adjusted. Why don't we go ahead and fire it up and see how it sounds, looking for any noises out of the bearings, any noises out of the motor. I know that I'm probably going to have a slight ticking noise because of the bend in the bandsaw blade. I'll get a better bandsaw blade and get it on here, and you know, I kind of go from there. So with that, why don't we go ahead and fire it up? Okay, it sounds good, sounds strong. Welcome back. Today, we are going to do something that I read about on an online forum. I've got no experience with it whatsoever, but we're going to use gun bluing on the cast iron tables. So this idea came out of American boat yards where most of the boats were being built with, in sheds and humid environments exposed to salt air, etc. And this was a way that the folks would try to avoid their tools from rusting away. So the part that causes me the most angst is you work in small sections, and once it's been sitting there for about a minute or so, then you wash it all off with water. So as a woodworker, the thought of having prepared all of this cast iron and then spending a lot of time putting some water on it is what gives me pause. So I have a garbage bag on the table. I've already wiped the cast iron tabletop clean with a solvent, and I think we're going to try to see how we can do in this section here first, wash it off, and then if that works, we'll see if we can get to the majority of the other section in one fell swoop. So with that, wish us luck, and let's see how it comes out. So the concept here is you work quickly and try to get even coating all over the bluing. Some of the articles I read suggested warming up the cast iron. It's been freezing here in North Idaho, so it is about 64, 65 here in the shop, and we'll see if that's actually warm enough or cool enough to make this happen. So it should happen rather quickly, and let's see what we get. Oh wow, that happens very, very quickly. I think the point here is to try to get a nice even layer to make sure we don't have a whole lot of splotching. Not absolutely the smoothest coat so far as I'm working around here, but let's see what we got. Get down into this miter groove. that's pretty easy. Okay. Need to kind of rub and agitate this in. In the worst case scenario, if we don't like this, we can always just sand it off. It's only just a few thousandths or less than a thousandth of an inch thick. So if it isn't nice and smooth like we hope for, then we'll just remove it and try something different. So it's all about gaining experiences and gaining knowledge here in the shop. So, hopefully this comes out the way we want it to. And if it doesn't, we learn something and we're able to come back and correct it. So far I like how it's darkening up here. The streaky bits may require a second coat, but let's see what we come up with here. Okay. Clean cold water, it suggests. So we'll go ahead and wipe off the excess with one paper towel and then clear it off with water after that. It feels like about a minute or so. A little blotchy. Okay. And the part that terrifies me, I'm even like pouring the water around my other table saw here. Okay, well, let that dry here for a few minutes and see what she looks like once we hit her with a little steel wool. So hold on for a few minutes and we'll be right back. Okay, instructions say if you don't like the finish or it's a little blotchy, to hit it with a little steel wool to kind of blend the colors. So let's see what we come up with here. Okay, let's go ahead and try a second coat here. Have hit it with a little acetone, let that flash off, and we'll come back and see what the second coat kind of looks like and see if we're gonna keep going or just call this maybe a miserable failure and just go back to my favorite finish normally, which is just a little bit of wax. So let's go ahead and see how even we can get this. Okay, coloring up a lot more consistently this time. And I don't know if it's coming up on the camera, but in the areas you can actually start to see a nice level of bluing coming up instead of just darkening. So let's keep going here for a few minutes. Like I said, it is pretty cool here in the shop. So we'll see how this comes about, and maybe we'll polish it in with a little steel wool too and see if we can actually get a more consistent kind of color across this entire surface here. Okay, gang, after wiping this down with water this last time, I'm gonna hit it with a little bit of acetone, and see what it looks like. Right now, I really am enjoying how this looks. So I think I'm probably gonna go over it one more time and then probably hit the edges and then get it in oil and wait for tomorrow. So overall, I think this experiment is working. It kind of looks like an old-timey pistol or something like that. So it has, a little bit of blotchiness. It's not even by any stretch of the imagination, and it's not supposed to be. So I've been able to manipulate the bluing a little bit with some steel wool. I really am enjoying how this looks. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish this up and then get some oil on it. So let me know what you think. All right, gang. So we've got it pretty well taken care of. It seemed like a pretty terrifying process at the beginning, but afterwards, in retrospect, I think it was all in my head. Pretty straightforward process. Now we're just applying oil to let it sit here. Buffed it out, put about 4 different coats on, and I like the result. I think it looks pretty good. The firearm guys are probably gonna roast me for not knowing what the heck I'm doing here, but that's okay. Got the sides, got the bottom. I went ahead and put protected on the bottom there. Overall, I really like how this is coming together. And I don't know, this little protectant wipe that came in the kit, I don't know if it contains silicone. It probably does, and that will interfere with some wood finishes. I'm just putting it on here per the manufacturer's instructions so that it can sit here for 24 hours. After all of that's done, I'll probably hit it with another splash of acetone and then probably wax it, just because that's what I do to all my machines. But overall, this was a whole lot simpler than I thought it was going to be. Welcome back. So this has been curing for a couple of days with some oil on it, and we're going to go ahead and wipe it off, clean it off with a little acetone, see what we think, and then probably put a coat of paste wax on, reassemble tonight, and then hopefully get this set up and maybe make a quick test cut. So let's go ahead and see what we've got here. So it has got an interesting patina. Overall, it's very, very smooth. Not a whole lot coming up in terms of surface rust or any sort of rust at all. So looking pretty good. And don't worry, I'm taking anything that's got any solvent on it, and it ends up in the either the burn barrel or a metal can. So no worries about rag disposal here. All right, let's see what she looks like when we pull all the oil off. So the goal for me was trying to learn, something that was suggested for the boat builders, and trying a new technique. So for me, collecting skills is really important. I'm not good at it yet, as you can probably tell. So all of the professional refinishers will look at this and go, these areas here probably could use touching up, and maybe I'll do that on the saw. But for me, I wanted to get this coating on here, get it into work, and see how this particular coating held up with abrasive wood, some wax, and see, is it something that you're gonna have to refresh every year, every couple of years, every month? And the good news is, if I don't like this finish, I can remove it quickly. What I do think I'm gonna enjoy is, on all my bandsaws, I have a bright light showing right on the cutting area. So I think I'm really going to enjoy having this darker surface and not kind of reflecting at me so brightly whenever I'm making small intricate cuts. So let's go ahead and get it cleaned up and see what we think. I've got the blade on, the blade's tensioned, table is back on. I've got a coat of wax on it. It's super, super smooth. The blade at the highest spot is, without any tension from the upper guides, is completely 90 degrees, left, right, back, and front. So with that, why don't we go ahead and start it up and see how we did. So fair warning, there might be a big pop if I've got the tracking wrong and it jumps off the tracks, but you'll be scared with me. So
let's see how she sounds. Nice and smooth. I still may replace the belt on this thing. It sat, without much use for quite a while, so I think we can probably smooth this out a little bit more. But overall, I'm really happy with how this is coming out. So I think next we're going to go ahead and get the fence on there. Okay, one of the things that I make an awful lot of are wooden spatulas. I give them away as gifts. I send them to a friend of mine to, she does a lot of pyrography and burns a bunch of cool designs in them, and so the things like that. So this is a piece of cherry, really dry, and I'll get 4 spatulas out of this. So why don't we go ahead and fire this up and see what the inaugural cut looks like. So hopefully we get a good cut. If not, we'll recalibrate and figure it out. Well, overall, I'm really impressed with how this cut. I went really slow on this one, got a little bit of burning, which was on purpose. I didn't intend to burn it, but I intended to go very slow. I don't know if you can tell from the pictures or the video, but the cut quality is really smooth. It's going to require very, very little sanding to get these cleaned up. And overall, I'm very impressed with the cut quality. Controllability, how it tracks. I think this thing is going to work out just fine in the shop. Well, there you have it. I am done with this project. I realized that the mobile base that I had wouldn't allow me to open the door, so I'm going to have to come up with some other design. But we'll tackle that at another point in time. So I think I might end up calling this one Mama Bear. So on the left-hand side, I've got the small 14-inch from my father-in-law. The right-hand side is my original MiniMax 16, which I absolutely love. And this will be an absolute workhorse in the middle. So I'll decide if I'm going to keep all 3 or if I'm going to sell maybe the smaller one and keep the middle one, or vice versa. But right now, they're part of the workflow. Let's see how they work, and thanks for watching.